All right, I suppose as good as time as any to begin it. For those of you who don't know, I'm Bennett the Sage. I do a little show called Anime Abandon. Who am I, Bette Midler? I'm not trying for applause here.
You're asking for a lot, man. Just wait for the design-free question, man. I'm just coming. Crazy, bro.
I'm the one talking here. But I'm on Channel Awesome, and been with Channel Awesome for going on 6 years now. I know, what am I doing with my life, right? This is basically going to be a free-for-all for questions. Feel free to ask me anything about what I do, about anything for everything. When I call you, come up to the microphone, speak your question loud and clearly. This is your moment. Earn it! You have your hand up first. You set the tone, my main man.
Alright, I was screwed over by the rules yesterday because I did not have a government form ID to get into the explicit night. Is there ever going to be any chance that I'd ever be able to see the reviews for that night in any medium?
Unfortunately, those are going to be con exclusive episodes, but I have been told that Fanime wants me next year, so it might be pretty good. You all can make it happen! Bennett the Sage, Fanime 2015! Make it happen!
I'll get my ID for that.
All right. You in the purple vest.
First off, just wanted to say thank you very much for doing the Yu Hakusho movie review. That made me so happy, because I was waiting for you for like 2 years ago. I was just like, come on, I know one day he's going to do this. It's going to make my day, and it did. But I was just wondering, I don't know if you talked about this in your other vlogs or anything like that. What do you actually think of Yu Hakusho as a series in full?
Yu Yu Hakusho as a series, I actually like it as far as shonen is concerned, because I'm not a shonen guy. I like my shows to have an end. I like there to be like a start and an end. So there's this nice arc that's very fulfilling for me. And shonen just doesn't end. Well, sometimes it ends, but not because they want to end. Just look at Bleach. But Yu Yu Hakusho I like because it didn't follow the typical shonen tropes, which always bugged me, like tournament arcs are just like the padding of shonen everywhere, aren't they? And it did it, and when Yu Yu Hakusho had the tournament arc, it just, for me personally, it's like, wow, you had this really interesting concept, and then you're going back to Dragon Ball Z. Thank you, goodbye.
What do you think of the arc afterwards, though? The black video, I can't remember what it's called.
Unfortunately, I also don't have a lot of space for like multiple volume of DVD of franchises. Like I don't have enough shelf space for like 10 DVDs for one show. So it's kind of hard for me to keep up track. But for what I did see of Yu Yu Hakusho, I did like up until the tournament arc. Thanks for the question, man. You in the glasses.
That guy in glasses.
We already made that joke in 2012.
So I really love your review about Evangelion, and I know you're an Evangelion hater, and so am I. But I was thinking, do you ever think Evangelion will ever die from its popularity? Because I'm so sick and tired of seeing that show everywhere. I just want to get away from it for just one day.
Do I think it will ever die? As long as there are teenagers who feel angst-ridden, no. Shinji speaks to the angsty teenager in all of us. And people have been asking me to see the rebuild movies, and I hear they toned down a lot of what made the original show annoying. And on one hand, I'm all for trying to fix mistakes, but on the other hand, it's been made, you know? It's like George Lucas going back to the Star Wars movies. And I know like some people are like, oh no, don't compare it to that, but when you look at it, what they're doing is more in-depth than what George Lucas did with the movies, but ostensibly it's the same, improving the original creation. What they think is going to be an improvement. Just so happens that the improvements that they made, a lot of people agree with. So.
Just another really quick question. What are your thoughts on mainstream anime overall?
Mainstream anime overall, it's tough for me to identify with it, really. Like Hatsune Miku, I just don't get it. I don't get the Vocaloid scene. And a lot of the shows that are coming out, like Attack on Titan, I've heard nothing but good things about. And I wish I could see it and not have like this predisposed judgment on it, because now I'm kind of forced to like it because everyone else likes it. Why don't you like it, faggot? You know, that kind of I don't want to be put in that position. So it's one of, like, Attack on Titan is going to be one of those shows that I'll eventually watch, but I'll get to it in my own good time. I want to see it for my own enjoyment, not because of peer pressure.
Thank you.
Good question, my man. In the black hat.
You've talked a lot about how you always want to improve your work and keep getting better. So, do you have anything specific planned, what you want to do with Anime Abandoned in the future, or what you want to do in general in the future?
When I'm talking about improving Anime Abandoned, there's always room for improvement. Like right now, I'm trying to figure out the finances for improving equipment. Like, where I live is right next to a busy road, and if you listen carefully, you can hear cars going by, and I'm wondering if I can improve a directional microphone, or if I can invest in maybe some soundproofing. As far as like the software side, I'm pretty good with where I am. There's nothing that I could feasibly do that I cannot do with what I have. So I'm looking towards improving the content so much. Like, there's only so many ways you can improve a critique of an anime, but learning how to frame it in a more entertaining way or more creative way. Not doing what some people do and do a story. I afford myself to do a storyline episode once a year, just to get my writing out of the way and get my indulgences out of the way and say, for the rest of the year, it's just going to be what the fans want. Just, you know, review. But then, like, somewhere along the line, it's just, I want to make something that I can hang my hat on. It's like, I worked really hard on that, and I don't care if a lot of people didn't like it. Yeah, look at Violence Jack, right?
Oh, dude, you stole my thunder. You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming, so might as well take it right there.
Oh, wait on it, man.
Yeah, but we'll get to it in good time today.
Exactly, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. But as far as like other projects are concerned, right now me and Mark, the engineer, we're in the planning stages of something that both of us are really looking forward to. I can't really say for sure what it is, but I can say that just over this weekend I was sent character design, and it is the cutest thing I've ever seen. So I can't wait to see it happen in reality. So thank you very much for your question. Thank you. Let's go in the back, the Luigi hat.
Regarding the scene in Space Thunder Kids where the fist breaks through the robot and hits that guy.
Yeah.
If you could choose one fictional character for that to happen to, who would you choose? Who has it coming the most?
And like my mind immediately flashes to that whining girlfriend in 8 Man After. Like, oh, you think those berserk football players weren't as bad as 8 Man, huh? Crash! Sanctimonious bitch. You know what? I'm gonna keep it to there. Yeah, she deserves a big old punch from a giant robot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You right there in the glasses. I meant the one in front of you.
I just feel like I should go on.
All right, you in the back. That was very kind of you.
So, we met yesterday, but I'm just wondering, ever since your ending of your video game reviews, I've been wondering, what is your Bioshock 2 of anime?
Oh, Okay, the one that just kind of stomped on my heart after I've proclaimed my love for it. I don't know, because I really don't have that anime that I'm so emotionally attached to and that I was betrayed by. Because like Cowboy Bebop ended, like I said. Like if that show continued, chances are it would have betrayed me, but it didn't. I don't. I think maybe. I guess if you want to stretch it, Clash of the Mayanoids, because it's basically Macross Do You Remember Love, except it's stripped and edited and completely fucked over, so there is almost nothing recognizable about it. And as someone who's a Macross fan, that's like, what clearer definition of betrayal is there? There isn't, so I guess that would be Clash of the Mayanoids.
Ah, okay.
Let's go in the back. Right there, the black coat. Yeah. Or yeah.
So I have a friend that couldn't make it here today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna read these questions.
All right.
What do you see in old anime that other forms of storytelling, like movies, live action TV shows, don't have?
I think anime has the creative outlet that comes with the fact that it's a limitless medium. I mean, like as far as like live action is concerned, you can have CG to have like a dragon crash through a building and like take me away because he was an Evangelion fan and just But with that said, that's a hugely expensive proposition. An anime, while not inexpensive, is infinitely cheaper than having high-scale Lord of the Rings CG come in. It also has a way of making the audience look at it as a character. I mean, like if we're looking at live action, we can see the actor. We see the actor before we see the character. Like even the best actors are actors. Like when you see Hugh Jackman's face, you say it's Hugh Jackman. You don't see Wolverine. You may trick yourself into thinking it's Wolverine, but it's Hugh Jackman. Whereas in a cartoon, that's Wolverine. You don't see the voice actor. You don't see the work that goes behind drawing each individual cell. You're presented with the idea of Wolverine, and I think that makes for a pure storytelling experience.
Yeah, there's more like control over like the expressions and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. Just last one. What do you think it'll take for new anime to be like it was in the old days?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
What do you think it'll take for new anime to be like it was in the old days?
What I think it takes is, oddly enough, something that'll probably never happen, but when you look at all the older titles of anime, you realize that one, they had a lot of money because of it was before the bubble burst, and two, they had the ability to not care about the end product. They just wanted there to be something to sell on store shelves. So that left a lot of creative room for directors and writers. But today's climate is everyone's so fiscally minded that whatever money they can spend on product, they have to be, like, no, this sold, so it has to be like this, because then it won't sell. And then now we get is a lot of the same stuff. I mean, like, yeah, we get like Attack on Titan, that's, a breath of fresh air in the anime scene, but that's only because it was it was a manga bestseller, so of course an adaptation was going to happen. And when you adapt something like that, it's going to appear fresh. Mm-hmm. So I think the climate today is way too fiscally minded to take chances like they did in the older days. But that doesn't mean we can't still get good anime today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. How about on this side? The blue shirt in the back.
So kind of writing off that question, I know I'm personally getting really sick of reboots. Like, I'm a Sailor Moon fan, but I'm not a big fan of just seeing the same thing over again. But are there any anime that that are considered like old relics that you would like to see updated for the current day?
I guess I would like to see, oddly enough, my mind goes to Detonator Organ. It goes to there because I feel that it is a weird kind of story, and yeah, it owes more than a few things to Tekkaman, but I'd love to see how it would do into today, like how it would handle some of the more, shall we say, evolutionary themes in today's political climate when it comes to that. So I'd like to see a more modern spin on that. And it's a weird, but that's where my mind goes to.
Cool, thank you.
No problem.
I'm gonna ask you,
All right, fine, go.
I got like 2 gigs tonight, and I'm like fucking busy. So sorry.
Go ahead.
Effing busy. Hey man, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here. You know, I'm gonna say the Violence Jack, man.
Yep.
It's Dustin Cochran just hit me with it. I mean, they did a whole 20 minutes of you being pissed off, and everyone's pissed off. So
Yeah.
what's your take on Violence Jack, man?
I
got a couple gigs. I gotta go.
Yeah, all right. My take on Violence Jack. For once and for all, let's lay this out to rest. Violence Jack is hateful. It is a hateful anime that has.
Well, see, it's like Dustin was crying about, well, that you had spent a whole time and you did a skit, which I liked. I thought it was funny and enjoyable. Yeah. But man, he got butthurt, and then he was like, man, and I just kind of, man, we already understand the take on Violent Jack, but
yeah,
what do you really think about Violent Jack?
Yeah. My, like I said, my thoughts on it is just like, it was hateful, and I couldn't find a way to make it funny. That was what it came down to, so I knew I couldn't do a regular review on it. And I got myself into a bad position where I was hyping it, but I had nothing for it. And that was a learning experience for me. If I don't have a plan for it, don't hype it. And I apologize to any one of you who felt misled by the intentions of it, but on the other hand,
I thought it was a good skit.
All right, thank you.
I really did. You know, and so one thing is, I got the jokes, but then, you know, I got a buddy of mine going,
yeah, it's
wait for years.
Yeah. I get it. He was misled, and he's entitled to feel angry about it.
Yeah, I think it's silly, but I thought, you know, it was a really great job what you did.
Thank you.
At least I get the time to say it on the mic because I gotta go.
Don't worry, man.
You got a lot more impressive.
Okay. You and the beard? I'm sorry, I don't know anyone's names here. I gotta pick out.
Alright, I have a love-hate relationship with Bleach. Where I read it, and I'm like, it's getting good, holy crap. And then 5 weeks go by, and it's like, this is the exact same thing from last week. Like, have you had a series that you're really getting into, and then it just derailed itself so far off, where it's like, you just lost all hope of that shit?
Eden of the East was that way for me. Like, it had a great setup. Naked guy who doesn't know anything, and then all this intrigue sets up, and then all of a sudden, I'm the king of Japan! Okay, that was and then, like, I think when the jumping the shark moment was, the jumping the shark moment for me was when somehow this, I forgot her name, but like this woman called on her Nobody's Obliged phone, like her magic phone, and says, get me wings. Okay, it's like fly out with this rapist out the window, and then it's from a costume shop. Like, what costume shop sells angel wings that work? It's like this magic fucking phone, like, like, at that point, that just was, I have to finish it just because I started it, but there's no way they're going to pull themselves out from what they did, so. Alright, thank you. It's you in the front with the teal shirt. No, not teal, dark green, sorry.
I suppose you have heard about the thoughts of coming out with a live-action Akira movie.
Oh, yeah.
What would you think you'd rather watch? The original anime or the live-action movie?
Original anime, definitely, because at least that is a technical marvel of animation. At least that has merit.
Despite the fact that you don't really like it.
Despite the fact that I don't really like it, yeah. Because at least I can appreciate the historical importance of it and its aesthetics. I can appreciate that. Whereas what Hollywood's going to do is basically CG the fuck out of it. It's just going to look like any other movie. It's not going to look remarkable in the slightest.
I thought the same thing too. The fact that they also have to take place in Manhattan. That was...
I know, Hollywood, American audiences. We can't have a movie set in Japan. No one will be able to identify with Japan. Godzilla was set in Japan, well, at least for most of it, wasn't it? And that made $200 million at the box office first weekend, didn't it? Yeah. So why can't we set it in Japan?
Reasons.
America. But thank you for your question.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's go for someone I haven't done.
Okay, so do you have any plans to review the Pokemon movies with Sway?
No, I don't have any plans. I'm open to the idea, but I'm not sure what I would say about the Pokemon movie. I saw it like when all of you guys did when I was a little kid. And I loved Pokemon. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And when Ash died, it was like the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But, you know, in hindsight being 2020, you look at that movie and you realize, wow, what a pathetic cash-in. I mean, it was everywhere, like the Burger King toys, like the merchandise. It was inescapable. And that movie came out, like, how could you not be wrapped up in it? And unfortunately, it's just not as good as you remember it. And I think my review would basically boil down to what the nostalgia critics said about it. Except it would come from a place where I was part of the fandom when it came out, whereas it was just like in high school.
Well, I was kind of referring to the one after Pokemon Forever.
Oh, the one?
The one Swade's been doing with like Linkara and Jado.
Oh, no, I actually never seen it because when that movie came out, I was out of the fandom. So it's, you know, it would have been more fun, but thanks for your question, man. The one with the parted hair? The black shirt. There it is. I wanted to be more interesting in my descriptions.
Well, first of all, some preliminary questions just to find out if you've even seen what I'm about to ask about.
Okay.
Have you seen any of the Haruhi stuff?
I'm sorry?
Haruhi and Melancholy?
Oh, Haruhi? No, I have not seen the Haruhi. That was kind of scared away from it, especially when Endless 7 came out, Endless 8 rather. When Endless 8 came out, it was like, okay, just back off. The fanboys are pissed, and they sound like they have reasons to be pissed.
That's actually what I was going to ask about, kind of what your thoughts were on that. It was almost like a company suicide or something like that. It's like, how can we best drive this into the ground?
I think it was more like company trolling, I think. That's what it was. I mean, how else do you describe decision-making that went behind someone saying, why don't we just film the exact same episode 8 times in a row? Let's see how long we can keep this up.
Crazy. Have you seen the Evangelion movies, the new ones that recently have more?
The rebuild movies I have not seen. I don't know if I'll be able to watch them without thinking about the original series, and that's it's separating as different pieces of work. Excuse me, and the Hideki Anno's mindset between each of them. I mean, before he was going through a personal crisis, and now no one knows what the fuck is going on in his head. So I think I'll eventually wind up watching them, but it's going to be a sit for me personally, I think. So, fair enough. Yeah, thank you. Let's see if we can get a lady. All right. Hey, ladies!
So I was wondering, where did the Sage part of your name come from?
That came from my brother. When my brother was in high school, he had a rap band. I know. A bunch of Northern California high school white kids formed a rap band. And he called himself John the Sage. And I always liked that. And, you know, they had their EP out. Well, actually, it's more like the homebrewed and ripped straight from their computer. And this was back in the late 90s. early 2000s, late 90s. So this was actually pretty forward-thinking of them at the time. But after they got their first EP out, they disbanded, never really did anything again. But I just hooked on to John the Sage, and I thought, well, when I was getting into the internet thing, I realized I would need a moniker, or at least something that would be a little more memorable than Bennett White. So I just, hey, why not Bennett the Sage? Just kind of hooked onto me like that.
Thank you.
Let's see. You, the black hat? I said black hat.
If you could be any X-Men character for a date, who would it be and why?
Gambit. I would be Gambit because no one is smoother with the ladies than Gambit. No one can make a Cajun accent sound sexy like Gambit. I mean, like, I don't want to go back down on the sand.
How long were you holding on to those? I feel like Tom Jones. I'm unusual than love anyone.
Thank you. Now that you got your questions? Okay. Can somebody pick those up, please? I don't want to be thrown in. Okay. Okay.
So you did the whole, your favorite top 20, what's it called? #1 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to do anything? Did you have to be like, ask Todd if he could do it because you were sort of bounding into his territory?
I actually had a kind of conversation with him. We were at Elise's wedding, and we were just getting drunk at the bar. It was just after the ceremony, and we were just knocking back, I was knocking back whiskey sours, and I was asking him, like, listen, dude, if I ever, infringe on your territory, just let me know, okay? And he was just like, dude, no. No, dude, it's all right. Oh, God, I had such a hangover that next day. But he's a cool guy. He knows that he doesn't own the territory. He doesn't own anything more than I own anything on the anime. Like, anyone is capable of talking about anything on the internet, so long as they're willing to accept the consequences those words can bring.
And I can assume that you saw his gigantic one eye that obviously he has under whatever.
The hood, and I gotta tell you, when he took off the hood, I was shell-shocked. I mean, I always wondered where Celine Dion went, but who would have thought? All right, in the back, in the green shirt, or yeah, right there. Or is that black? I can't tell. Gray, greenish gray.
So you've reviewed Legend of the Overfiend now, and if you could actually get it out to a mass audience, what would be the next you would review? Because there's a lot in that area that are, near and dear to my heart.
Oh man, if I could get away with one to review, I would make it count. I'd make it. I don't even need to be in the room for that review. I could be just like Bob Saget and watch this clip. And then it cuts back to me eating a Baby Ruth. Now watch this. Thank you. Oh, come on with the landing lights. All right. You already had your question. Go ahead.
This is the last time I'm coming up. Okay. So I'm like considering trying doing a review show at least as a hobby, and one of the many things I've heard from like many reviewers on the internet is that like if you plan on doing something like that, do you have to like script out what you plan to do for the episode? What would you recommend in order to like how to do that process, or how to get more like creative to find out what you feel like doing in that process?
The way I've always constructed a script is find what my main central thesis about the thing in question is going to be. And for like Detonator Organ, it was about like how un-Mosamio Bari it was. It was boring. It was not at all like Abari's other work. And it was about like how could there be such a disconnect between director and oeuvre at the end of the day. And it came to be that was his first like original directed anime he ever made. Like before, he was just a director for hired gun director for Bubblegum Crisis for a few of those OVAs. So I think he didn't really have his sort of sway to what he wanted to make as far as anime is concerned. And then along came Fatal Fury, and along came was a Venom, I think it was, or Virus. Yeah, it was Virus. He directed a TV series called Virus, which was very much like Masami Obari's other work. So he had. We were looking at the beginning. We were looking at his beginning work, and then from that idea, I came up like, well, why don't I talk about other directors that had like this sort of arc to them, where then Ubagol entered the discussion where he went from unbelievable shit to boring shit. And he had the opposite trajectory. He went from boring shit to unbelievable shit. So the discussion became more about that, and that allowed me to frame a plot point by plot point script. So basically, find what the main central thesis is, expand on it, and then you can hang plot details around it.
Okay, and real quick, last year's Channel Awesome anniversary thing was rather different from what everyone was expecting. If there are plans for a new thing going on this year, if you know about it, are you going to be in it?
I do not know what's going on their side of the world. The days of getting everyone involved in Channel Awesome into Chicago for a weekend to film a movie, are over, because it's way too expensive, way too time consuming, and way too much of a nightmare hassle for everyone involved. And while the end results can be mixed depending on who you ask, I don't regret a single moment that I was there. For anyone, met some cool people that way. I saw Chicago for the first time. I've never been to the Midwest. So when you're going out that far ahead on someone else's money, why not take it? So I learned to enjoy myself, and my worldview expanded because of it. So I don't regret a single moment.
All right, thank you.
No problem. The girl with the glasses? Okay. Don't worry, there's not going to be a hunk of cheese at the end of this maze.
You guys free?
I was going to ask like, how is the writing process for the jokes go? Because I know a lot of times, like, when do you know to kind of draw the line to like whether to cut a joke or to push it a little more? Especially with some of these older series, they could either be like so boring that like a lot of the jokes come off of the material that you're given, and like sometimes they can either be like so boring that like you can't really do anything, or like violent stuff where it's so hateful that like you can't make fun of that.
What I usually do when I'm editing wise, I look at how a joke is playing off to me, and usually I don't laugh whenever I'm editing, because it's just, I know what's going to happen, and there's always a disconnect between paper and film. So if I write the joke, and I think it works in writing, and I think it works in performing, but when it comes to actual juxtaposition, and when it comes to actually seeing what happens on the screen, I look at it, and I'm thinking, this is not working for me. Even if I'm not laughing, this still doesn't work for me. So usually, right then, I'll just cut it. Usually those come with reference jokes, Usually that's what happens with there. Like, I think there's a killer reference in my head, and I type it out, and then I play it back, and then I realize the clips just aren't syncing up properly. There's too much of a disconnect between the material and the reference, so I just excise it out. And sometimes a joke happens because of my own ignorance. Like in the review that everyone here probably saw, there was supposed to be a clip of me talking right after the ninja was holding up the hand symbol and said, like, not owns the and originally I thought the guy only had 3 fingers when he was holding it, but it turns out his pinky was kind of like broken and underneath the signet. So he technically had 4 fingers, but it was hidden behind the color of his hand, so it looked like he only had 3 if you were looking very carefully at it. So I just went like, what? The guy barely flinches when his arm is cut off. Why would he freak out when he only has 3 fingers? But, 1, he actually has 4, so the joke doesn't make sense. And 2, it wasn't even really that good of a joke to begin with, judging by the response. So I cut it out during editing. Sometimes when it comes to jokes that are a little too, how should I say this lightly, not morally, it's in a moral gray area. The question I ask myself is, first and foremost, is it funny? Like, no matter what the joke is about, the first question you should be asking yourself is the joke funny? And if it's not, don't make it. Don't care what it's about, don't make it. Even if it's to fill in silence, don't make it.
Also, who do you go to, like, when you're editing and stuff? Like, I know you talk to the engineer and stuff for editing, but is there anyone else that you like to, like, test out on before you go film something?
I don't really have another person who I regularly go to test material like I do with Mark, but my friend Gabe, I usually talk about what plans for the script, and I usually get his input, or at least his response. And if he laughs, then I realize that, well, it's funny to me and Mark, and now it's funny to another friend of mine who probably doesn't have a lot of context behind the joke because he hasn't seen the anime we're reviewing. So at least I know that it can be considered funny, even if you have no idea what's going on. And those are always like the best jokes to me. Like, if you could get a laugh without all of the context, then there must be something going right. Thank you. All right. You've been raising your hand for a long time, so.
Two quick questions. One, what is the record time you've ever been done with an anime? You sit down, you watch it, you get to a certain point, you're like, I am done, good day.
Half of the first episode of Girls Bravo. Like the moment where that guy just falls into the mystical land where there's 95% hot women and there are only 5% men who, oddly enough, you never see a man. I don't think you ever see a man in Girls Bravo in their world. I don't think. And then all of a sudden, BAM! 5 busty gals want his dick. And I'm thinking, well, I know what this show's about. Click. Oddly enough, I watched the 4th episode, which is actually kind of creepy to watch because for some reason or another, there's a scene where the main antagonist's bodyguard, female bodyguard, has the hots for the main character's friend, and she basically molests her with a gun. Yeah, it's like she takes a gun and she just kind of caresses it over her chest and then pushes it up against her tit. And then she tries to rape her on a bed, like later in the episode, so it's like, yeah, I'm done with this. I mean, if you wanted to make hentai, make hentai. Don't put this in your series. So.
Second one,
Yeah.
are you doing any more collaborative work with Zone?
Yeah, actually, I'm his regular scriptwriter and regular voices, and but as far as the actual animations, like the
No, I meant just voice acting.
just voice acting, yeah, I'm just his regular go-to Dave Franklin, King Troll. How the hell are you? For those of you who don't know, I actually voice a regular animated series called ZTV News, where I'm the narrator, Dave Franklin, who is introducing his mascot, Zontan. And I know. And during writing of it, I was figuring out what would be the process, like what would be the relationship between the two, and I thought, like, wouldn't it be funny since like all I've ever heard about Zontan was like how much like people wanted her to be their waifu, and I'm thinking, what if there was one guy who just cannot fucking stand her for whatever reason, and just constantly trolling her, and she trolls him back, and it was like this completely adversarial relationship, and now people are just wondering, when is their Dave and Zone gonna fuck? And there are times when I'm thinking, that's probably going to happen, isn't it? I don't know when, but...
Technically it might not, because I don't think Zone's drawn a model for the character.
No, like, the idea was that we keep Dave in the shadows. Like, no one knows what Dave looks like, because no matter what Zone could make Dave look like, it would just be, you know, it would be unremarkable. The idea was originally that we would have Dave Franklin be like a totally normal dude, like in a world where there's like a violating tentacle monster and a hentai mascot. Here's a guy named Dave. I just wanted him to be like a completely normal dude, just like, I got this job through the temp office and now I can't leave. Fuck me, you know.
Fuck somebody else's job.
But, like originally I wanted him to be just like a twinkling light, just so as to save animation time. Like, I'm Dave Franklin and I'm a magical twinkling light. But no, that idea was shot down immediately. But who knows? Like maybe if Zone could get 1 million subscribers, maybe you'll see Dave. I don't know.
Let's do it, everybody.
Yes, let's reveal Dave Franklin.
Alright, thanks for your time.
Thank you. You as Finn.
If you could live in any anime world, which one would you live in and why?
If I could live in any anime world, I would love to live in the world of Outlaw Star. I would. I mean, like, intergalactic space travel, magic exists. It's like the best of both worlds. It's like you've got caster shells, you've got intergalactic space travel. You're a frickin' space pirate. Why wouldn't you want to be that? So, that in a nutshell, yeah, I would be in Outlaw Star's world in a heartbeat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Black Cat again.
I've got 2 questions this time. And first of all, are all the anime you review ones you've seen before, or have you begun seeking specific things out for the show?
Sometimes it's a mixed grab bag, because there's still things that, like, in the back of my head I get to, and seeking them out sometimes is problematic, because a lot of these anime are not printed anymore. They're out of print, and most of the licensing companies that still own their rights have gone under. So like they'll never really be re-released. Like I don't think anyone's on the hot track to try to re-release Biohunter. So it becomes like finding the right price for a DVD, like wherever I can find it. Sometimes it's a hook, and sometimes I just go by suggestion. Like someone suggested to me Apocalypse Zero. Never seen Apocalypse Zero. I watched the first episode, and after I gathered my brain matter all over the floor, said, yeah, this will make a good episode. That's your second question?
Yeah. I like watching your bookshelf in the background, so I want to ask, what is your favorite novel?
My favorite novel? American Psycho is, I like American Psycho a lot. I'm reading a book now called Geek Love that I like quite a bit. I'm moving on to Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian next, so I can't wait. I've always been told good things about that, so I can't wait to read it. And I think another one I liked is The Confederacy of Dunces. So, you know, not to brag, but I'm a big reader.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See, you, right there. Try to go by people who I haven't called on yet.
Okay, so, tell me, what would be your favorite and least favorite anime character?
Favorite, least favorite. My favorite anime character probably would be probably Guts. Yeah, I like Guts. I like his simple, real outlook on life and his determination and the fact that I think his defining character trait is linked in one line. It's like, I don't want what another man can give me. And I looked at that and I'm thinking, wow, a lot of people should be like that. Thank you, Kevin. A lot of people should be like that. They should not be so concerned with themselves about earning someone else's respect versus, you know, just living life to what they want. So, and I think, and respect comes with it. And as far as least favorite, oh wow. You know, there's like a pool I could draw from. Like I could say Asuka very easily. I could say like again the sanctimonious bitch from 8 Man After. You know what? I think it's going to be a tie between them because at least like on one hand, Asuka is an arrogant bitch, but you know with this. The series tries to delve into why she is the way she is, and even though it's not really all that satisfying, she's still a bitch. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter why she is the way she is. That doesn't stop her from being a bitch, you know? So like, yeah, it'd be understandable. I mean, yeah, it's a character trait, and yeah, not every character could be likable, but at the same time, why are you spending so much goddamn time with her if it's just so grating? And like at a certain point, there's a law of diminishing returns with both characters. Like the more you're around them, the more you hate them. You don't come to sympathize with them. You don't come to understand them. You just hate them, and you don't care if they come to a resolution. You don't care if they get over themselves because the time in which it takes for them to get over themselves or to complete the arc is time that you could have been spent with other better characters, or at least characters that don't piss you off. That's the trick with writing hateful or at least unlikable characters. There's got to strike a balance between giving them unlikable traits, but not making the audience want them to die in a fire. If you can find that, good on you. So, all right, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Beard, one more time.
Is there a particular series, it doesn't have to be anime, it can be like a television series or a comic series where you're a huge fan of, but it's very disappointing that almost no one gives like zero fucks about it. They just don't care.
I don't know if like, I've always felt that there really isn't a case like that. When you cast a wide net like the internet does, you'll always find fans of things that you thought that you were the only fan of. Like for the longest time, I thought that I was the only guy who liked Secret of Evermore. But turns out there are people who still like the game, who really like the game. And I thought that, point of reference here, when I did my review of Devil May Cry, the reboot, I liked it. I really and honestly liked the game. But then when it came out review, everyone hated it. Like everyone's like, how the fuck did you like this game? This game is shit. And I think people are more pissed off at Capcom than at the game itself. And
I can vouch for that, yes.
Yeah, so they want to take their anger out on Capcom, and the best way to do it is, you know, via their latest game. So, and I think they were being quite unfair to that game. It wasn't a great game by any means, but as far as Devil May Cry goes, and as far as where it went, I think it's been the best Devil May Cry game since, well, 3. Better than 2, definitely. Better than 4. But they're acting like it was like the worst thing since Hitler. not to get all Godwin on you guys, but you'll always find people who are into the same things as you, even if it just seems that everyone's against you. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I think we have time for one more. You in the back. Yeah?
So I'm a really big fan of Shaman King. I started with watching this series when it was on TV, even though 4 kids is horrible, and I picked up the manga. Both of them have very different but very, very unsatisfying endings. One basically undoes the entire anime series, and the other one isn't an ending. It just stops telling the story. What has been your least satisfying experience with either a manga or an anime series? Just biggest letdown.
Least satisfying. Probably the ending to Gantz. Probably. It had so much, it had a build up, and I was thinking like, where was the series going to go? And then it just kind of had a filler ending that wasn't in the manga at all, from what I understand. I haven't been able to read it yet, and it just kind of fell flat on its face, and it suffered from a lot of those same problems. It suffered a lot of problems that the series did. It didn't know how to pace itself. It did not know basically how to tell a story in a flowing manner. And I got really kind of disappointed at the end. I felt empty at the end of Gantz, even though, thank you, even though it was just, it was a series that I grew to like, but then the ending happened and it just kind of let me down. Some could say I've never gotten over it. Thank you so much for your question. I am out of time, guys.